In this video, I'm going to break down the primary concept regarding the carnivore diet. This is the reason as to why people on the carnivore diet choose not to eat vegetables. The idea is that plants are trying to kill you.
Plants are trying to kill you. Brussels sprouts alone had over 136 identified human carcinogens in them. This is why no one likes Brussels sprouts.
To most people who have never heard this before, it kind of sounds insane, but I guarantee if you stick around to the end of the video, your entire perception on diet will be changed forever. So what does it mean that plants are trying to kill you? It's meant in a literal sense. Every single species, their sole goal is to survive and reproduce. Now this is true for animals, and they have many defense mechanisms like sharp teeth and the ability to kick or run from potential attackers. Now obviously plants can't do any of these things. They're stationary in the ground. So what happens is over time they develop something known as defense chemicals, designed to harm anything that tries to eat it. The plant's only way to defend itself is through biowarfare. Now this isn't some crazy theory. This is a hard fact well known in biology. Now intuitively we all know this. You wouldn't go outside into your back garden right now and eat a random plant. You know it could be poisonous and you know it may harm you. Now for example, we have Brussels sprouts, which have over 136 different identified carcinogens in them. In fact, every single vegetable that we commonly consume has over 60 different identified carcinogens in them. Now this is the reason why vegetables have such bitter tastes, and the only way that people start to enjoy vegetables over time is when they build up an acquired taste. Now this acquired taste is only developed as a survival mechanism. Our bodies think we don't have many calories around and that this may be the only way to get the calories in that we need and not starve to death, which is why it starts to enjoy the taste of this. Now think about it, if something was super good for us, it contained every single nutrient we needed and none of the bad stuff, wouldn't our taste buds recognize this and it would taste amazing? Once again, the reason we have this bitter taste is because of these defense chemicals. An example of these defense chemicals is lectins, which binds the human gut, causing inflammation, as well as preventing nutrients from being absorbed. Now some of the foods that contain this are wheat, oats, potatoes, beans, lentils, as well as many others. Another one of these defense chemicals is phytoestrogens, which mimics estrogen in the body and it completely messes with our hormones, which causes mood issues and destroys our energy levels. It also has a feminizing effect in men. Now the absolute worst example of this is soy. In a fertile woman, she will produce about 180,000 nanograms of estrogen, and the birth control pill contains 35,000 nanograms, which is literally designed to trick women to thinking that they're pregnant so they don't get pregnant. And in 3 ounces of soy, there is over 1 million nanograms of phytoestrogens in it. Now 1 nanogram of phytoestrogen doesn't perfectly convert to 1 nanogram of estrogen. However, it's incredibly clear it has a massive effect, as women who cut soy from their diet notice a massive improvement in mood, and when a man eats soy, it's very, very clear.
I drink 2 glasses of soy milk every day. Where is the research showing soy consumption has feminizing effects in men? Soy does not have any feminizing effects in men.
Another problematic defense chemical is tannins, which causes proteins to bind together and again prevents nutrients from being absorbed, which leads to digestive issues in some people. This is one of the reasons why the vast majority of nutrients like iron in spinach cannot be absorbed, and why every single vegetarian seems to have an iron deficiency, despite the fact that on paper they're actually having heaps of iron. Now some of the commonly eaten foods that contain these tannins are spinach, kale, rosemary, walnuts, and cocoa. Now another one that's much more known than the previous ones we just discussed is cyanide. Now cyanide is very famous for it being used as a poison. It kills people by preventing cells from being able to use oxygen. And throughout history, this has literally been used to assassinate people. What a lot of people don't know is that if you eat only 50 bitter almonds, you're actually eating a lethal dose of cyanide. Now bitter almonds do contain 50 times the cyanide as regular almonds, but it's still only around a couple of kilos of almonds that you need to eat before you're at this fatal dose. Another problematic defense chemical that most people think is actually a miracle drug is caffeine. Now caffeine is actually developed by the plant to fry the brains of small insects that try and eat it. Now what happens over time is that when a species eats the same plant, it starts to develop mechanisms to break down these defense chemicals. This is what we call the evolutionary arms race between plants and animals to see who can evolve the fastest and to see who can survive. This is why certain animals can eat certain plants and not get sick, but if they eat another plant, they become very sick. An example of this is goats. Earlier I talked about tannins. Well, goats have actually developed an enzyme called Tannins in their saliva, which allows them to break down tannins before it causes digestive issues for them. And gorillas have massive intestines to ferment plants turn them into fats and proteins before they eat them, so these chemicals don't affect them either. However, for humans, for most of our existence we ate only meat, so we have none of these mechanisms to break down these defense chemicals. We know this for many reasons. First of all, is we don't have any of these adaptations, as well as things like our stomach pH rating. Humans have a very acidic stomach, very similar to other carnivorous species like lions. Now, throughout the animal kingdom, it's only the carnivores who have these acidic stomachs, and the reason is that meat gets bacteria and pathogens on it. So by having such an acidic stomach, it breaks down this bacteria before it can get to us. Now, plants have very little bacteria on them, which is why herbivore species do not have this acidic stomach. Another way we know this is through nitrogen ratings. Whenever we find old human fossils, they always have very high nitrogen ratings, higher than wolves, higher than every other species. Now, how nitrogen ratings work is that the more meat a species consumes and the less plants a species consumes, the higher the rating is. We also have things like coprolites, which is essentially fossilized stools, and in these we find no plant matter at all. No seeds, no anything. But what we do find is things like bones from smaller animals. We also have biological changes in our structure. For example, we've developed this throwing arm. No other species can throw objects like we can. Now, this is a clear indication that over time we developed this to throw spears at animals. In an upcoming video, I'm going more in depth on this topic, which I'll link to in the description once it's out. Now, some parts of a plant are worse than others. As I mentioned earlier, the plant's goal is to survive and reproduce. So the plant itself is very high in these defense chemicals. And the seeds/beans of a plant are even higher, as it's essentially the baby of the plant that it needs so it can reproduce. Now, fruit is the least defended part of the plant because the plant actually wants it to be eaten. When an animal eats a plant, it breaks it down and excretes it. And when it does this, it essentially plants the seed of that plant and the reproduction is successful. However, for a number of reasons, I still don't think fruit is good for humans to consume. I made a video breaking down why I believe this to be the case, which I'll link to at the end of this video. Now, a lot of people like to argue that the dose makes the poison, and that it's actually beneficial to have these chemicals to build your immune system up. Now, on the surface, this kind of makes sense, but you could say the same about everything. By this same logic, it would be good to smoke and drink on occasion to build up tolerance to toxins. Anecdotally, almost every single person seems to feel a lot better when they remove plants from their diet and go strict carnivore or animal based, which at this point is hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions. So a lot of people hear this, but they still can't get their head around the idea that vegetables are bad for you. However, to me it seems straightforward. They're full of defense chemicals. We can't absorb any of the good stuff in them, as well as the fact that nowadays they're mass produced and they're grown in the same soils over and over. So the soils themselves contain no nutrients, and so modern vegetables are a lot less nutrient dense than they used to be. As well as the fact that they're also sprayed in a massive number of pesticides and that a lot of them are genetically modified. A common argument is, well, I eat vegetables and I'm doing alright. Now, just because these defense chemicals don't kill you straight away, it doesn't mean it's not harmful. Take drinking or smoking, for example. It doesn't kill you straight away, but we know conclusively that these things are not good for our health long term. So why does the carnivore diet work? Red meat is the only food on the planet without a single identified carcinogen in it. It has the perfect quantity of every single nutrient we need in its bioavailable form. Now, a lot of people like to say that red meat is bad and that there are studies to prove this. There has never been a single study that's actually shown conclusively that red meat is bad. All these modern diseases didn't even exist until recently. So how on earth could red meat cause them? Eating meat is how we've always eaten, and it's our species appropriate diet. By eliminating plants from your diet, you're going to feel a lot better, like the countless examples of other people who are on this diet. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more of my content, feel free to subscribe down below. It's completely free and it means you'll see more videos like this. If you have any other questions or there's something that I missed, let me know down below. I've also attached a video where I break down why I don't think eating fruit is a good idea, despite the fact it's the least offended part of a plant. Thank you for watching.